All right. Well, guys, welcome to another podcast. We're starting it here. I am your host, Adam Bone, joined with two people that are usually part of this podcast as well. We've got Spooky Luke Haueter, to my right, your left, to your right, my left. I don't know. He's over there.
He's there.
And if you're
You've caught
listening
him.
to the podcast, I'm all around you.
And that's a
Ooh.
great thought.
I like that.
Lanson is
Embracing
to my bottom. He's always just
Lanson
down there
is
somewhere.
Lanson is your bottom.
He's my bottom. Yeah.
I'll be your tail man any day, Maverick. That's how that goes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's riding my tail hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that with like Gooseman and that other dude.
Yeah, it was a classic exchange between Cody Maverick and I believe his name was Goosefront. And of course, his
Goosebumps.
twin
Goosebumps
brother,
McGee.
his twin brother was Goosebumps, and his whole thing was getting scared before every mission. He's like, "We can't go up in these guys. We can't go up in these planes. We can't go up in these planes, guys. It's pretty scary.
I'll just do like air traffic control or something, man.
Hand me one of those funny little light sticks."
I think you guys watched the wrong movie again. So
What movie?
I don't know.
I don't know what
I'm a
movie that
little
is.
lost, but whatever it was wrong.
Well,
This
that's
week-
not the movie we watched, so it's fine.
Oh, okay, good. If you're new to the podcast, it's called Final Boy Status. It's a podcast where we watch a horror movie, we talk about it, and then we decide how we can survive it. Just like you would do with your friends. You say, "Ooh, I could survive that horror movie. Those people are idiots. They could have done better." We do the same thing and decide if we, three average Joes, could actually do better than the characters in the movie. This movie, picked by Spooky Luke over there, is called Deep Red.
He forgot what it was called.
No, I did not. You can't prove it.
Deep Blue
Red.
Sea.
I paused for effect.
We watched Deep Blue Sea. Boy,
There's a
oh
lot
boy!
of
Talk
deep
about
movies.
yeah, talk about like a powerhouse performance from Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
No, I picked a movie called Deep Red. Was this the most pretentious choice I could have made? Maybe. I think it was just that thing of we've talked about a lot of slashers, and of course, slashers were born out of the great giallo movement happening over in Italy in the 70s, and we like basically just ripped that off and made the slasher craze in the 80s. And so I was like, well, let's look at probably the most famous giallo movie and kind of see how it stacks up. So I went straight for a Dario Argento directed classic, released at the height of the giallo movement, a movie called Deep Red, in the original Italian Profondo Rosso. Originally released in the US as The Hatchet Murders, so maybe you know it as The Hatchet Murders. I don't know why you would. There's no hatchet.
I really would just love to have the reaction of somebody that's like, "Oh yeah, the Hatchet Murders. I love that movie."
Incredible. One of my favorite pieces.
Oh man, now that's a film. That's cinema right there, brother.
Sitting there the whole time waiting for a hatchet, and it never came. The biggest mind fuck of my life.
Oh, subverting expectations, man.
Ingenious. Argento's a master.
But yeah, Luke, that's a good background. Do you want to kind of go into maybe the plot of this movie? Why, if there's any other reasons why you decided to choose it?
Well, I think something that has been on our minds throughout this entire show is just we try to be conscious of the fact that America isn't the only source of horror. Very early on, Lapin wanted to do Veronica, which is a Spanish horror film that's incredible. Just recently, you had us do, last week, I guess it was, you had us do The Host, which is a Korean film. And I kind of wanted to pay homage to international horror as well, and I wanted to do something we hadn't done before. So that was just a big thing for me. And also, like I said, we've done so many slashers that to not go to the source of where slashers came from felt profoundly silly to me. If I were to briefly describe what this movie is about, it's about a man who witnesses a murder and feels compelled to solve it, and sort of follows him as he tries to solve the mystery and figure out who the killer is. So I feel like this is a great movie for us because literally the main character is just some guy, which is our exact qualifications. Uh, so I thought it was just going to be. This is one I hadn't seen before I recommended it. I would recommended it purely off the back of hearing several different famous horror movie directors reference it. And I thought to myself, well, then we've definitely got to give it a look.
Awesome. I love it. Great. Very simple premise. And I had never heard of this movie before, so it's really fun to pop in a movie and be like, I guess people die in this movie, but I guess let's see what it's about.
Blank
Not really
slate, baby.
I will say that the poster for this movie, when it came out, has the word psycho, then The Exorcist, then Jaws, and then it says, now there's Deep Red. And so it's really hyping itself up. I kind of went in with that, knowing that was the poster too. So my
All of those
expectations
movies
were
are going to be included. All of those
yeah,
elements.
expectations were sky high, baby.
I just set them high. So we're going to start by talking about our general thoughts. We're going to get in breaking it down, talking about specific decisions, characters, antagonists. But for now, just super generally, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Whoever feels like you have something good to go off of to start. What did you think about the movie? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What was the thoughts, consensus going on here?
I mean, I'll say it first. This is, as you pointed out, this is a really simple premise to a movie. Guy witnesses a murder, decides he's going to solve it. The execution has got to be the most like confusing storytelling I could imagine. Like you hear that premise and you're like pretty straightforward. Within 5 minutes, there's a psychic woman, like, and she's barely relevant to the plot. There's a big long subsection where they have to break into a school, and I don't understand why they had to do that. So it's just like in terms of like how the plot moves very confusingly. I think it's also interesting. I made the comment that the longer I sit with this movie, the more I like it. While I was watching it, I was having kind of a hard time because the early scenes of the movie, once like the plot of the movie kicks off, I kept looking back to some of the earlier scenes and going, why the fuck did we have to sit through that?
Yeah.
It's not relevant to the story at all, but then the ending ties it all together really well. And you look back and you go, oh, actually, no, there was a point to that scene. There was a point for that to happen, and that was setting something up. So the more distance I have, the more I have an appreciation for like what the movie was doing all along. That being said, some of the early scenes are kind of weird, especially like after the murder happens, because there were a lot of scenes of people just like standing around like, here are the differences between men and women. And it's like, why is this a scene? Like,
Jeez, yeah.
shouldn't you be talking about like the murder? Like that
Right.
seems far more relevant than what you're talking about. And so it all kind of comes back later. So maybe the dialogue could have been tightened up a bit. Also worth noting, this film was made in Italian. Like all of us would have watched an English dub.
Yep.
And sometimes English dubs are not particularly well planned or thought out. So it's entirely possible that something's just lost in translation here. But I feel like the dialogue could have been tightened up. But like looking back on the movie as a whole, I think every scene was relevant and needed to be included, but maybe the dialogue could have been improved. So I'll start there. I'm sure I'll have more to say about it as we go, but let's just get something out there on the platform for consideration.
Nice.
Yeah, so I feel like just to start off with what I liked about the movie, I thought the location in Italy, that was really cool to see a lot of the architecture. It was also fun in the 70s kind of to see a little bit of that nostalgia and, you know, like the clothing and the cars and all that good stuff. Yeah, like it's been mentioned before, some parts of the dialogue were a bit clunky in my opinion, but again, right, it was translated into English, so can't go too hard in the paint on that. But yeah, I will say that this movie is very distinct, you know. I can't really say that I've seen, I mean, obviously, yeah, there are slashers that were made in America in the 80s, but definitely this one is kind of, you know, the direction of it. It definitely seemed like Argento had a very decisive direction and a very thought out way that he wanted to film the movie, and it's very distinct, which I liked. That being said, like one thing I didn't always enjoy was like the transition between scenes. I'm like, all right, I guess it's another scene now. All right, on to the next one. But yeah, you know, I felt like, but overall, I felt like it was a movie that was a good thriller. You know, kind of just was one that that kept me entertained and made me want to watch till the end. So yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Cool. Yeah, I like this movie too. I think it felt very long. If I'm gonna start with, I'll start with what I didn't like, and then I'll go with what I do like. But I thought it was a little long. The pacing was like, there's just some scenes, and I agree with Luke. By the end, I was like, okay, like it's not, it wasn't as weirdly paced as I thought it was. There were scenes that were important, but even still, I think there are some edits that could have been made to make it a little bit tighter, to feel like a little less wandery without direction. And then the other thing I will add as a negative was the music was really cool and it added a lot of energy to some scenes, but then it was completely distracting in other scenes where there was like an intense thing, but there's really groovy bass line in the background. You're like, this doesn't really match up at all. And again, it's kind of like you guys said, it's hard to approach these kind of things from knowing I'm a foreigner, not familiar. Like maybe Italian movies are just kind of that way. I haven't watched a lot of Italian movies. I don't know, but yeah, to me, it was a little distracting. I was like, this doesn't really match the what's happening, the horrific things happening on the screen, but then there's this groovy bass line with these drums, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm watching something very different. So but as far as positives, it's not surprising to me that you say, Luke, you heard a lot of directors talking about this movie, because I feel like it was directed very, very competently. I mean, there's these beautiful wide shots that showed characters walking down the street, and some of the edits were a little weird, I agree, but a lot of the editing was really cool, very Hitchcockian. Is that how you say it? Where, you know, the stabs and the quick camera movements, but then it would stop and just like settle on something and kind of let you kind of marinate it. I loved the deaths, even though the blood looked a little funky. The prosthetics and the way it happened and the creativity, I loved a ton. So honestly, I was pretty on board. By the end of it, I liked it a lot. I think the first little bit, I was like, I don't know about this. So I'm glad I stuck it out.
No, I mean, visually, this movie is a treat. Like,
yeah, it's great.
I really, really liked just looking at this movie. It's gorgeous. And yeah, the blood is a very particular look, but I kind of dug it. It just fits the aesthetic so well.
It wasn't like distracting. It was fine.
But no, I definitely understand why this is a movie that's talked about. Like, it's really gorgeous. It's it doesn't feel compromised at all, which horror movies are sometimes a realm where you feel like the director probably comes in with a vision, and then maybe the studio or whoever's paying for it can come in and corrupt that vision. Or maybe the director has a vision, but they don't have the money to accomplish it. Nothing feels compromised here, which is really cool. A big thing I'm going to say, just my own personal bias here. I know I said it's easy for us to insert ourselves into this movie because the protagonist is a boring white guy and we are three very boring white guys. But this movie makes the mistake of making the two female leads a literal, like, psychic mind-powered woman and then like a badass like Lois Lane style takes no shit reporter, and then expects us to care about the boring white guy in the middle of it all.
Right.
Like, yeah, when spoiler alert, this whole show's a spoiler alert, but like, yeah, when the psychic woman dies, like 2 scenes in, I'm like, well, if she's not the protagonist, how are we supposed to care about whoever comes next?
Right.
She literally has brain powers, bro.
Great. I mean, and she knew it was coming. She screamed at the door. So
Right.
I know.
too bad it's a little delayed. Like she couldn't
I
sense it
know.
in the building, or something. I don't know.
Very convenient for the plot.
Yeah.
She couldn't be like Dr. Loomis, like, it's come home.
I can smell you. And a new frame.
But so there's some really wild like Stephen King level like things happening in this movie, including a woman with mind powers. And then we're supposed to be totally cool with, I think the main guy's name is Marco. We're supposed to be totally cool with him being the main character, even though he's like the Italian version of mayonnaise.
Yeah.
So the main character's name is Marcus, and then there's a Carlo.
Even worse.
I wanted to make that.
He doesn't even have a little bit of flavor. It's just
because I like
Marcus.
Carlo.
The oatmeal of names,
I'm a
Marcus.
Carlo fan.
Yeah, so big complaint with this movie is it's like you can't open with her like really great hammed up performance of like psychically connecting with the killer and then spend the rest of the movie following around what's his face as he like putters around in the gutter looking for clues.
Marcus.
I know you're
What
really
did I
trying
say?
hard for this, Adam.
You said, "What's his
remember
face?"
his name? It's Marcus.
No, I actually at one point thought I should write these names down because if I don't write them down, I won't remember them. And then
Yeah.
I didn't write them down, and I can attest I do not remember them.
Fair enough.
Actually, that's not true. Gianna. I remember Gianna because she's
Gianna.
awesome.
Yeah, Gianna.
Justice for Carlo. Justice for Gianna.
Yeah, frick. That's true, man.
Carlo
side
got
with that.
killed though. Gianna survived. So justice for Carlo.
But
I stand
also,
by it.
Gianna got stabbed.
Yeah.
And after she got stabbed, she got her face fondled by what's his bucket. Like, nah. That's
Darius
another thing.
Rucker.
That's another thing. So here's the thing. There are some things I miss about movies from the 70s. I wish that movies were a little more keen to be transgressive. I'm not going to go to bat for every 70s movies, every 70s movie, because some of them made real bad choices.
Yeah.
But I wish we were like as weird in our filmmaking now as we were in the 70s. But I'm going to put this out there. There was a lot of crap in the 70s and 80s where there's like a really cool, badass female protagonist who is half the age of the male protagonist. And we're supposed to root for them to be a couple, ? Like,
Yeah.
they don't get together in this movie, but there's like a little bit of an implication, like they arm wrestle, which I think is supposed to be like a little bit of foreplay or whatever. And like, again, it's not helping me care about this guy. Like, that guy's definitely got like a kid somewhere. Like, go home, man.
Yeah,
Go
dude.
home.
Drink your Metamucil, dude.
You're gonna get all constipated. Come on, get it together, man. All that jazz piano and pizza. Get your life together.
Well, a lot of good thoughts about this movie. I say we dive into the scrumptious stuff. Usually what we do, the what do you call it? The organization of the podcast. We usually start by talking about the villain and then talking about the protagonist, and then kind of go generally, could I survive it? Could I not? So let's talk about the antagonist a little bit. The what was it? The hatchet killer.
Yes.
Obviously. How did you not remember that, Adam, with all the hatchets in this movie?
So many hatchets being thrown across the screen.
I didn't write it down.
Frame.
You forget the names, I forget the hatchets. It happens.
And I'll forget the movie.
Great, Lanson, thanks.
All I'll remember is the commercial breaks in this movie.
Yeah.
Just like the Super Bowl. I'm like, I remember the commercials. Everything else
there you go.
was not there for.
I think Joe
guy.
Montana played. Joe Montana's been retired for like 20 years. Wow. I was close.
Yeah. This is the right sport, right?
Right.
I love hockey.
Let's
So
talk
good.
about the killer. So what do you guys think? What are some strengths, weaknesses, things you notice, decisions? Just kind of scattershot. What do we think?
Well, it seems like something that the killer, like an MO that they work under, is the element of surprise. So, usually they're able to misdirect their victims where they make them think they're coming in one direction or another direction, but they end up like being around the corner or behind them or like a place where the victim wasn't looking. So I feel like stealth was a strength, even though it's kind of like at times ninja stealth. And, spoiler alert, Martha, the middle-aged woman. Martha, exactly. I was actually save Martha. I wanted Carlo to say that so bad while he was dying in the gutter. Save Martha. But yeah. So Martha definitely uses stealth. Sometimes a little bit outside of the realm of possibility where I'm like, I don't know about that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ambiguity in this movie too about like. So let me say this: the movie leads us to believe that every death that occurs during the run of the movie is Martha trying to protect her own ass, basically, because the psychic lady like connects with her and figures out like, oh, you killed your husband back in the day, which very unclear why she did that. And every move she made after that was just like trying to keep the secret contained so she didn't go to jail, question mark, unclear. So like there is kind of that thing of a weakness of the character, which is like the need to not be caught is driving her to kill more, which in turn leaves more clues
Right.
for her to be discovered.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's kind of that thing, right, of like just a tricky situation to be in. Like either you go to jail for one murder or you kill a bunch of people and leave a whole bunch of evidence and potentially go to jail for like a lot more. It's a tough choice to make. I don't know.
I think
And
at
every
that
kill she makes, the protagonists get closer to finding her.
point, yeah.
So
Oh, and you gotta be looking over your shoulder when good old Michael's following you down the street. He's gonna figure it out,
Good old Mitchell, man. That guy is hot on the case. Also, I got to say this. This may be a random tangent, but like, what the crap are the Italian police doing? Like, we got a freaking pianist on the case making more headway than you guys. Like, what are we doing?
he's got it. Just let the dude.
And like, not to be this guy, but when we say he's making headway, we mean he's like going to the library, spending a ridiculously long scene reading a book, and then going, maybe I could contact the author. Like,
Yeah, right.
when we talk about when we talk about Marcel as a investigator, he is not exactly top of the class by any stretch
Right.
of the imagination.
Yeah.
This guy, like, I part of me feels like you could jaywalk in front of this man and he'd be like,
What's that all about?
you could jaywalk in front of this man and he'd be like, well, fascinating that person is a pornographer. And it's like, you're not good at connecting the dots, buddy.
The law has found you, my friend.
I've taken the law into my own hands for reasons that are never really explained.
These piano playing hands.
Which, by the way, we see him play piano once, and I'm going to be honest with you, not that impressive. It's kind
Not
of
great.
pretty mid. That shit was not bussin' for
For
real.
real. For real.
For real.
He had a nice apartment though, so he's making the cheddar somehow.
I guess so.
The implication is that him and Carlo are actually making bank playing piano somehow.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Even though we see him play piano once, we see Carlo play it none.
And we never will.
So sad. Too early.
After he lost his hands in that really unfortunate skiing accident.
I told him never to go to the Alps. Anyway.
The surprise, well, the stealth factor is big. I think also the surprise factor of who it ended up becoming, the antagonist, was unexpected as an audience member, but also as a pianist investigator guy. Like that's she played it off really well, where she seemed like to almost have dementia, where she like couldn't remember his occupation. She's kind of chatting about things. It seemed she made herself seem like really harmless and not observant. So, if it was me and I was on the case, she'd probably be the last person I'd even think of. So she's got that going for her. Unless Luke's giving me a look that is saying, "You pleb." I could see her.
Guys,
speak for yourself.
Okay, let's get this out of the way. This would have been a vastly different movie if any of the people investigating the death that instigates the entire movie was even remotely good at thinking. Look, I hate to be this guy. The main character sees her.
Yeah. And
not to be this guy, but like that whole scene where he's like walking down the hall and then he looks at the mirror. I, watching the movie, went, that is a mirror. He is looking the killer in the face. He did not figure that out until the last scene of the movie. Not to be this guy, but like, not to be cocky or anything, but I know for a fact, just from watching the movie, that I take out Granny in scene 1 when I walk into the apartment, clock her in the mirror and go, Carlo's mom?
Martha,
a person he's met before,
right?
A person from his life. He like, if I saw Lanson's mom in a freaking mirror, I wouldn't be like, nice painting. I'd be like, Mrs. Lappin, what are you doing with that hatchet?
You'll never know, Haueter. And that's a spot on impression of my mother.
Yeah, brother.
It's fine. She doesn't listen to this.
She doesn't respect what I do.
She doesn't even know I'm alive. Oh,
I check in every year on Mother's Day. Other than that, I will not speak to that woman. Look, man, like frankly, the killer only gets away with as much as she gets away with because everybody in this movie's dumb.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about the author. Like, okay, sorry, we're already kind of cutting into like character choices, and I'm sorry to invade that real estate so early on. But like, let's just talk about the author lady. Remember that part where she walks into her house, sees a doll hanging from the ceiling, walks outside to be like her friend that just left to be like, was that you? And then walks back and said, no, leave. The fuck?
Don't go back.
I walk in and see a doll hanging from the ceiling. I'm like, well, I'll be back in 17 hours.
Yeah.
After I've sicked the cops on this place. Like, what is even the logic that you go back inside and like have a look around? Nah, man. Not for me.
Yeah.
And furthermore, like every step of this investigation makes no damn sense, where they think the best path forward is like, you know what? There was a song playing. I remember that song being mentioned in a book. Let me go to the library, read that book for a really long scene. Then I'm going to go to the house of the person who wrote that book, get more information. I have more information. I'm going to go to the house mentioned in the book, frickin' scrape on the wall with my bare fingernails, which was the grossest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's bad.
Gonna scritchy scratch on that wall for a few hours straight. And after I find a nice little picture underneath it, I'm going to go ahead and get bonked over the head and sleep inside of a burning house or something. Look, but just every stage of this investigation was like, what? Why? And especially at the end where it's like the little girl's like, oh, I drew a picture that I saw in like the records of my school. And they're like, we're breaking into this school. It's like, what?
Why? Yeah, I know.
Nothing's adding up, you guys.
I know. Also, Marius was like a lot more aggressive than it needed to be with that little girl and the questioning of like, where did you get this? How did you find this? It's like, hey man, like you could just be like, hey, where did you find this? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Instead of being like, tell me where
She
you
could have been the
found
killer,
this.
Lanson. She could have been the killer.
I mean, she did stick
No.
like pins.
How about that, Adam? No.
Rejected
Could
flat
not have
out.
been.
Okay.
But yeah, and then like the whole like, what kind of made for TV like ending is we're gonna bust into this school in the middle of the night, have a look around through the records. Like, no, of course not. And like big spoiler for the end here, like when he's like, I know it's you, Carlo. And then there's like that end reveal where he's like walking down the street and he goes, wait, but Carlo was with me when the first murder happened. Yeah. I clocked that as soon as I saw Carlo's face. I was like, I actually got mad at the movie. I was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. They both saw that lady get murked, and I'm supposed to believe that he's the guy that did it?
Right.
But I mean, the movie was smarter than that. But apparently, our protagonist, whatever his name was, Murdoch, apparently he was not smart enough to put 2 and 2 together on that one. Oh, the guy I was standing next to when we heard the scream of somebody being murdered, he's probably the murderer.
He definitely did it.
He did it. Good thing his head got squishy squish like watermelon.
Also, I just want to, this is, I mean, it's, I guess it's kind of related to the characters, but holy crap. That was like the biggest rated R Three Stooges moment of just like, you guys hear something? Ah, please stop. And then, yeah, just his head getting run over. I remember just chuckling through that whole thing of like, man, this movie really went for it and I'm here for it.
I was like,
I like that death.
I'm not saying I wasn't a fan, but it was like, you know, in Jurassic World when like the assistant girl gets like plucked up by like the pterodactyl,
Yeah.
and you're like watching it unfold, and you're like, one, this is really stretching the limits of like what I'll buy.
Yeah.
2, this is really mean spirited. That was me during that whole thing. I'm like, they're really kind of stretching the margins of disbelief when it, you know, the suspension of disbelief, they're pushing it. And also like, I know the movie wants us to think he's killed some people, but this feels harsh.
Yeah. This is like a lot.
He mostly
Not
just killed,
enough.
like, I mean, you know, he killed 2 people that probably didn't deserve it, and then he killed like that creepy guy with the bullet, which I was fine with.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm scared to make this point because of how
Okay.
passionately you guys just stomped all over the main characters. There were some scenes where I was like, wow, that was a pretty smart thing that main character did. So don't hurt me. But
I'm gonna come into the other room. I'm gonna give you a big old hug. Big
And I
old
was like,
smooch on the
dang.
mouth, consensually.
I don't know.
What the audience at home doesn't know is Adam is on the other side of that door. Lanson is on the other side of that door.
Just through that window are my friends.
We're actually really close together, obnoxiously close.
I can hear Luke screaming in the other room, going off about how much he hates these characters. But I'll throw a bone. I'll be the one. I thought
That
the
reminds
scene
me.
where the killer. Yep, there's the visual cue for all you 3 people who watch us on YouTube.
Oh,
Just to really killer for our audience.
More annoyed Adam gets as Luke puts this up. Just like, yep, there it is. Once again, you done did it, man. Thank you.
Thank goodness, another visual joke in a podcast.
My name says justice for Carlo because I think he was treated unfairly. I agree with that. even though I loved his death, it was super fun to watch. It was sad because he was a great character and I loved him. Just childhood drama, like it's something he can't, it's just not his fault. Anyways, yeah, what was I saying? The scene where Marcus is in his house and he's playing the piano, and the killer comes in and he keeps playing the piano with one hand while he gets a blunt object with his other hand. I thought that was smart. I get that you guys were unimpressed with his piano. I thought it sounded all right. He was playing it with one hand, which is impressive. I don't know if I could do that when I play the piano. And he was like, oh, this killer doesn't know that I know he's in here. And I thought that was a good choice. And it ended up being good because he's phone rang, he slammed the door, the killer said some things that I forgot, and it worked out for him. So I thought that was good. I also liked, even though it didn't lead to a ton and didn't matter for the whole thing anyways, it still was cool. The reveal with the steam in the shower, I liked that part too. I thought that was a good putting the dots together from the character. He's like, ooh, like she's pointing there. Just that whole reveal I thought was satisfying. That was more of a filmmaking thing, but yeah, I think just to throw a bone to the characters, they're not always terrible. I agree, they're pretty average and they're pretty slow, but there are moments where they make some all right decisions.
No, I think, obviously, our good friend McDougal made some really hot calls because he outsmarted the killer multiple times. And even then at the end, just like the quick thinking of, let me send the elevator down, like led to a really, really fun and visually striking final death that gives the title of the movie meaning and really like sends the movie off on a high note.
And a necklace made of titanium.
Yeah. Evidently a necklace made out of barbed wire, ?
Only the best.
Unbreakable and endlessly
only
sharp.
the best for my murderous mother.
Mother Martha.
Mother. I think I'm not gonna denigrate everything that happens in this movie. I just think something that bothers me in movies is when it feels like characters move without intention. And the characters in this movie feel like they're moving without intention. And I think that really got to me. And like I said, their investigative decisions don't really add up to me. Like one of the few that I will go to bat for and thought was really cool is, like the guy in the bathroom sees like, oh, right, like steam is like the steam sticks and she's pointing at something. She was writing something in the steam and he has that cool reveal. And of course he figures out who the killer is like way ahead of time. And that's, why he gets the podcast audience have no idea what I'm doing, but I don't know. It's also just that annoying thing of like the characters are never where they should be. You know what I mean? Like he goes and actually investigates where the author lady died while our main character Macbeth is just like off on his own side quest like to a house. And all of this while Gianna's sidelined. She's just like not in most of this movie.
No.
Which is like such a bummer because again, it's like that thing of you're presented with a really cool character that could be your protagonist, and instead it's just like some guy. So like it's weird to talk about because I feel like the movie wants to be kind of ethereal in a way, and everything needs to feel a bit like I think there is something dynamic and interesting about the characters being driven by like gut feelings and nothing else. But also it makes our jobs very interesting because we have to step in and try to put logic to their actions and their responses. And the logic doesn't necessarily hold up under the scrutiny we are used to putting movies under.
Right.
The microscope. Yep. Thought we wouldn't catch it.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Dario
were, yeah.
Argento putting together his final product of the movie. Please do not let these three men, hopefully someday, years from now, nobody will ever review this movie with that level of scrutiny.
What Dario Argento could never know is that I would look at this movie through the same microscope I used to look at my own penis. And I would really have a look at these characters and think to myself, I don't know that I can defend their actions in every scene.
Oh, man. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up, kind of
Mhm.
going back to the antagonist,
Yeah.
is a choice that I could see as both a weakness and a not weakness, whatever you call that. They really wanted to be spoopy with all their kills, where they would hang dolls from the ceiling and whatever that very creepy robot thing that came. Maybe was there like a story reason, or was that the killer setting that off? I forget.
I think that was the killer setting that off.
Yeah. So she's just making the scene really scary and really frightening for the person, which I think is a strength because it does make people more irrational and freaked out, but it also makes them go into fight or flight mode, which also takes away the I don't know, the surprise. So I feel like that's kind of a double-edged sword where I liked it for the movie, but I'm like, I don't know if that was a strength or a weakness. I think it was kind of could go either way. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I mean, oh, sorry. I was just going to say the only thing I can really say in her benefit is, I mean, Granny goes feral. Like, I think they say, like, when the cops show up in exactly, I think, 2 scenes. And the first scene they show up in, they're, like, looking at the first murder. It's pretty useless, just standing around like, whoa, this is pretty bad. But I'm pretty sure one of the guys actually says at one point during this scene, they're like, yeah, somebody took a butcher knife to her, and 2 of the cuts would have killed her, but the person kept going, and it was like, it's all right. So one thing in Granny's favor is if like she gets the upper hand, she's not wasting it. She goes absolutely feral. Because they were just talking about like the butcher knife cuts. That's before she friggin' before she smashes the girl's face through the window and brings her jugular down on the glass. Like that was all what happened before that. So like,
yeah,
fair to say that she does not like Alexander Hamilton. She does not throw away her shot.
no.
It's true. That's true. So she has a little bit more leeway to kind of screw around with her prey, is what you're saying, and because once she has her claws, and she's gonna go for the kill pretty intensely.
She's got to get the adrenaline pumping in their veins, otherwise there's just no sport.
No sport. Martha trying to be a hunter of men and women.
Lappin, you were going to make a point, and I accidentally cut you off, and I would like to swing the microphone metaphorically back over to you, so you may make your point.
Yeah, so I guess kind of going, if we're thinking about it, a little bit as a detriment, especially if you're one of the characters that's like involved in the case, like there's a killer out there, so when you see stuff like that, like, I mean, if you're a rational human being, you should probably just leave your house if you see like a doll, or just like don't go to the scary place that's poorly lit. But also, and maybe I missed this in the movie, but like when Martha kills the author, like, was that book like a big deal in the place they live in Italy, or like how the crap did she know that there was an author, and then how did she know where she lived to go and kill her? Like, it seems like all this information in the case, like the cops surely didn't know about it, and like Mitchell, just stumbled upon it. So I'm like, was Martha like keeping an eye out for people that maybe got on her scent? Because it's like, if I'm Martha, like, I guess I just kill my husband, and that's about all I really I've boarded up that room and then it kind of leaves my mind for a while. It's just interesting to me that like all these pieces of the case, like she just knew about and was there. And I'm like, how could you have known that?
Question mark have an answer for that.
Yes.
I feel like there were a lot of shots that seemed to be, because it's established early on in the movie that John Carpenter very much ripped this movie off with Halloween. It's established early on in the movie that there's point of view shots from the killer's perspective. So while Marilyn Manson was making his investigation, they would every once in a while insert these like point of view shots that look like somebody following him. So I think the implication was Martha was following him as he was making his investigation. Therefore, she was there when he found out about the author. So she just went to the author first.
Okay.
I think that's what the movie was doing.
Right. I just would have loved, like, he leaves the library and then, like, the librarian's like, "Ma'am, can I help you?" "Yes, that book that he was reading." "Oh, no, the picture of my house, it's gone."
It would also be funny if, like, there was a deleted scene that's the freaking main guy, Marky Mark, calling up Carlo, like at every time he figures out something new about the case, he calls up Carlo and he's like, "Dude, you'll never guess what I just found out." And freaking Martha's just upstairs, like party line style, just
okay then.
We got a curious cat on the case.
So,
man.
Yeah, because I thought about that as well, especially when the movie tries, like, for a minute to make you think that it's Carlo. Obviously, I wasn't fully buying it because I was like, but he was with...
He's right there.
Yeah, he couldn't have done that first murder. But I also kind of tried to think about it, and I was like, well, then how would he know about this? And how would he know about that? And I was like, I guess the main guy just tells anybody that'll listen. He's like, "You'll never guess. I got a huge break in the case."
Right.
So, here's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
So super kind of just random character choice. There's a room in this old house that he didn't know about because they took out the window. So he goes to the front of the house on a super steep, scary ledge and starts hacking away. He falls down. All this, crazy stuff happens, and then he ends up just doing it inside the house anyways. It leads me to wonder why he's decided to do that. Like, I get the window, but if he would have just done some spatial awareness, he's like, yeah, it was that one hallway with the picture. He could have just started with that. I don't know. I feel like that was a dumb decision. It didn't lead to a ton, just kind of a goofy scene for us, which was kind of comical to watch, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, just have some spatial awareness, go into that hallway and start there instead.
Right.
Yeah, there's a version of this movie where we watch the main guy just spin his wheels for an hour and a half and then accidentally slip and fall off a cliff.
Just breaks his neck, and that's the end of the movie.
He follows what he thinks is a clue to the Hoover Dam and then falls off.
Oh my God.
Another clue right down there.
Cross country lines.
I gotta find this killer. I'm a pianist that doesn't quit.
Yeah.
PI, pianist investigator.
And then we cut to the perspective of Martha, who just watched him take a nosedive off the Hoover Dam, and she was like, I was worried about that guy.
Well, looks like I'll go to Cracker Barrel.
The only thing to do in the United States for people over the age of 63.
Indeed.
I will point out, though, big old mistake Martha makes. She gets the upper hand on him at the house, knocks him out, and then lights the house on fire. Like, kill him.
Yeah.
You went absolutely feral on everybody else. Why are you holding back on, Mr. Potato Head there? Like, I guess she read her script and was like, "Oh, I don't kill him.
Oh, I don't kill him in this scene.
I gotta wait.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that's supposed to be Carlo that does that, like trying to throw him off the scent, get rid of all the evidence in the house, but also, I can't kill him. He's my best friend.
But I don't have to save him either from this burning building.
I'm no hero.
Although
My
that's a
fireman?
good point. Like the scene just like picks up with Gianna like cradling him outside of the building. Maybe he was
Mhm.
like left to die in the burning building and Gianna went and rescued him. That
Yeah.
it's left ambiguous. So maybe there was an attempted murder there and we just didn't see it.
To
Yeah.
the movie's credit, I was like, oh, it's totally Gianna. Like I was like, I figured it out. It's
Yeah.
Gianna.
I
And
thought that too for a second, especially because like to Lanson's point, you're going, well, how does the killer know about this and how does the killer know about this? And I'm like, the only person he keeps consistently like telling about the breaks in the case is Gianna. And it makes the others the scene where they arm wrestle make more sense in hindsight because it shows that she's strong and can overpower people. Like,
yeah, I thought I had it figured out for a good minute or so, and then I was like, wait, I think she's telling the truth. Never mind. I'm off.
that's the hallmark of a good movie is that for a minute you go, oh, it's Gianna, and then it shows Carlo, and you're like, oh, I guess it was Carlo. Wait, but that doesn't quite make sense. Like the movie gives you just enough that you're kind of going like, okay, maybe I don't know who it is. Although I will say, like when they're in the school and Gianna wanders off, which is the dumbest move possible.
Don't do that. Yeah.
First of all, don't break into a school. Like you don't need to.
Yeah.
Like,
And also,
why?
like the fact that they keep archived records of drawings that students made. No, they're throwing those out, bro.
Those things get thrown away for sure. Yeah.
Oh man.
Something I kept thinking throughout this entire movie is I'm like, this movie would be shorter if people like worked together.
I know,
Like,
right?
it's like a whole thing that like Gianna wants to team up with Michael Myers or whoever the main character is. She wants to team up with him, and he's like, no. But then he tells her about every development in the case anyway. So they're both running parallel investigations. And then there's what's his face, Giordano? I think Giordano or something.
I got it pulled up.
The dude with the mullet,
Giordani.
Mm-hmm. He was also doing like his own parallel investigation, and presumably the cops are doing their investigation. So all you need is for two people to investigate together, and this movie is over so fast. Like Giordani and SNL's Mike Myers go to the author's house, and where it's written like it was Martha, Giordani's like, I don't know who that is, and then freaking the main guy goes, I know who that is. End of movie. Like, why is everybody lone wolfing it, including at the end? Like, Gianna and the main guy bust into the school together, and then at the last possible minute, Gianna's like, I'm going to lone wolf it over to call the police. Let them know we just broke and entered into a public school.
Right.
And yeah, the main guy's like, sounds good. I will wait here in the library where I'm not at all vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
This is also after they heard a noise. So
yeah,
even more idiotic.
Yeah.
So just that thing of like, you guys know that like groups are acceptable. Like,
yeah, probably beneficial.
Yeah. So it's just like, I was just baffled watching this movie because I kept thinking to myself, like, if these characters didn't, I mean, apparently they just hate existing in the same space. Like,
yeah,
if they could get their act together and actually look each other in the eyes for a few scenes in a row, this movie would be a lot shorter.
Right.
Yeah, and the main guy didn't have so much toxic masculinity and was better at the piano, and there's a lot of things.
Yes.
I mean, but that's the question. What is the movie trying to say about masculinity? Because like that whole scene plays out, and obviously he's in the wrong because she's just as capable as him. But then also at the end of the movie, I can't help but notice she's stabbed and he's not.
Well,
Coincidence?
But a woman was the killer the whole time. So
You heard it here,
wasn't
folks.
her.
Feminism is one. Women can also kill.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Indeed.
It's great. It's great news. Wonderful news.
We've been waiting for this news for years.
Yeah. Really makes the world make a lot more sense.
I've been trying to kill my husband for years, but I just thought I couldn't. But then I just became empowered, and I hatcheted that son of a gun so much. He's raw tuna now.
I hatcheted him so bad, my son was an alcoholic when he grew up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This might be like a real tangent, but it is really funny to me, too. Here's the thing. I'm well aware of the fact that we are three white guys doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And sometimes I lean into like the cartoon version of that. But then I also think to myself, like, out of context, they don't know that I'm not the cartoon. So doing the cartoon was probably a mistake. Which is my way of saying 3 seconds ago, where it sounded like I was making fun of feminism. I'm not excited for the day where that's cut out of context and sent to me.
I'm excited for that day. Luke,
Adam's the one. Adam's doing the editing.
Yeah.
I'm on the cutting room floor.
Grabbing those scraps.
Well, I think more than most movies we cover, there's a lot to say about the protagonist. I mean, the antagonist, kind of a basic slasher. Not a whole lot to say,
Yeah,
but there were a lot of
basic bitch.
choices to talk. Yeah, yeah. What are there any other choices, decisions, strengths, weaknesses that you guys wanted to bring up before we move on? Okay.
I think I'm good.
I'm good too. I think we kind of covered it all. Now to the segment that you've all been waiting for. What we call the segment, the final girl and the final boy status segment. How it works is we go around and decide individually if we can make final boy or final girl status, meaning could we survive most of the movie, then have a fatal ending, or could we survive the movie all the way through without dying, assuming we best the antagonist or some creative form of that prompt. Could we survive this movie? So let's kick it over to Lancino. Lancino, what about final boy and final girl status?
So I'm going to give myself both in this movie. Okay. I'll say two different possibilities that give myself both final boy and final girl status. If I witnessed a murder in a foreign country, I'd probably be like, you know what? Maybe I need to go home. I think I'm good. I would not look into the case any further. I would definitely help the police in whatever way I could by giving my statement and telling them what I saw, but that would be that, and I would be on the first train out of there. Or if, I saw a doll in my house or anywhere next to me that was just hanging from the ceiling, or I heard a noise, I'm just going to nope my way right out of there. And then number two, let's say I am Marius, and I go over to Carlo's house, which I've gone over many times. Something about me is my
just
mom
having a
raised-
look at those empty tables and empty chairs.
the color of angry men and
Yeah, deep
Yes.
red, the color of angry men.
deep red. Yes. So anyway, I go over to Carlos / Martha's house, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just hanging out for Carlo. I'm not gonna pass up like a free meal or like whatever. And anyway, so I noticed that Carlo's mom is making stew with this butcher cleaver, and she's like going to town on these carrots and celery. I'm like, huh, interesting. And then, she offers me some coffee and drink some of that. She keeps calling me an engineer. I'm like, maybe you're not altogether there. Okay. And then what seals the deal is I witnessed this murder. I walk into the apartment, and I am just, when I open the door and first walk in, I am just overcome by the scent of old lady. Like, we're talking like peppermint and formaldehyde. And I'm like, I know that scent. That's Martha. Where are you? So, not only that, I'm like, you know what? This may be bad, but that chick's already dead in the window. There's nothing I can do. So I'm just going to back on out of there. And then, tell the police, like, hey, the killer, I remembered that scent of Werther's and Febreze, and it was Martha. So maybe you should look into that, lady. And yeah, so that would be the reason why, purely by me, like, just not getting too involved with the case, to be honest with you, not any more than I needed to. And then just by, recognizing Martha by her scent as well as her image in the mirror. So yeah.
Kapow.
I love it. Glad to hear you're surviving this one, Lanson.
Me too.
Luke, what about you? Final boy, final girl status. Where are you putting yourself?
Oh, you already know I'm coming for that title. Final boy status. Look, our protagonist survived the entire movie by barely solving a crime, and I could do that probably in my sleep. If we're honest, 70% of this movie is him not solving a crime, and I do that every day. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hand myself that victory.
Nice.
And you know what? I'm coming all the way. I'm coming for the title. I'm going for final girl status. And let me fill you in a little bit. What you may not know is I have a long-standing history with a very dear friend of mine whose name is Helga Ullman. We go back a long, long ways. Back when we shared a father figure, a white-haired gentleman that we referred to as our papa. And we got the matching tattoos and everything to prove it. And Helga had some talent, sure, but she was never Papa's favorite child. That was always numero uno.
Oh, yeah.
And so I happened to be visiting my dear friend Helga as she's doing a circus tour, whatever the fuck that initial scene was, in Italy. And I see her in the window getting stabbed into a pane of glass on the jugular. And I don't even have to leave the street. I use my mind powers to hook that old woman out of the window. Watch her splat on the concrete in front of her son. Very comfortable in the knowledge that, if anything, I've freed him from a tremendous weight. Maybe take him to rehab, help him clean some stuff up. And, unfortunately, wasn't a lot I could do for Helga at that point. But, sometimes you fall under the influence of these stranger things, and there's just not really anything you can do.
Oh, man.
Hucking
an old lady out a window.
I think you mean Hawkins, an old lady
Hawking
out the
an old
window.
lady out a window. Oh, yeah, dude.
At
And,
first, I was
if
like,
she's still not dead, I could have a baseball bat with some nails in it. Just
Take that, you old
Lucille.
man. Carry that around wherever you go.
yeah, with my
Every
Farrah
trip to
Fawcett
Italy.
hairspray.
Yeah. I
That's amazing.
felt like
I
I
love
was
that.
missing something at the beginning, but it all came around by the end. And so that was a ride. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Lanson.
Of course. What about
I
you, Adam?
Questions now here for you, Adam.
I think this movie's a little bit of a paradox because the main character being so clueless and oblivious was relatable because I'm always clueless and and oblivious. And the paradox is the fact that he is that way means he's less of a target because this killer only goes after people who know or have leads about her identity. So I witnessed this, and I'm going to put myself as the character to the extent that I live in Italy. I'm not like visiting it. It's this. I see this in a place I regularly go, and I am like, I listen to a lot of true crime. I think I got this, but I'm very clueless and oblivious. And along the way, I'm picking up breadcrumbs. I'm like, okay, this girl was stabbed on a window, which means the killer really does not like windows. I've got to look up Google searches of people who say I hate windows and cross-reference them to my location. And Martha's in the
Track down
sidelines.
a lot of iPhone users.
Yeah. I that was a good joke, Luke. I like that. And Martha is watching me on the sidelines, just out of frame. Like, is he a threat? And she's looking at my Google searches, and she's like, nah, he's good. And she kind of skulks away. So I make it. That's how I make final boy status, is from just being so ignorant and oblivious that she's like, we're good. We're good there. We could just let him run in a circle, you know. But then accidentally I happen upon this old haunted house, and I'm like, this is a cool haunted house. And I go inside it, and I hop the fence, and I am clumsy, and I trip on my foot, and I fall into the spare room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a dead guy. And I piece it all together on the spot. And she's like, oh my gosh. And she's about to come for me. And she's been watching me. And so she steps through the little hole I made with my body with a knife and is about to get her. And then boom, a gunshot in the middle of her head. She goes cross-eyed and staggers a little bit and then falls backwards. And behind her, Freddie Prinze Jr. with a gun. Yeah! Holding it up, pointing towards her. He gives me a kind of a stupid face, just kind of a, and then disappears into the darkness, and I never see him again.
Back into the mist.
And you have no idea who he is either.
I'm like, who the heck was that guy?
Who is that man?
Came out of nowhere.
His clothes are so weird because I don't know what the 90s are, you know.
Yeah, this is
He's a
75.
time
I'm
traveler.
living in 75. I'm like, what was that alien that just came out of nowhere?
You were living
Kinda
in
handsome.
75, meeting a lot of iPhone users and really feeling confused.
Googling and stuff. That's true. I wasn't really true to the period. Going to the library, I guess that's what I'd be doing at the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be looking up at the library like a history of people who hate Windows.
the
Martha.
long encyclopedia
Yeah,
of window haters.
you go to like City Hall, like who's filed a complaint about Windows recently?
Yeah, who had like a construction invoice for patching up a window?
I guess which would have led me to that house, so
Yeah.
that works out.
There you go, man.
I'm also just imagining like the most recent entry is the police getting the window from that apartment fixed. So you're like, it's an inside job.
Oh man.
The police are in on it.
We're going full Serpico. Internal affairs, baby.
Oh yeah.
Well, we did
Well,
it, boys. All
we
three
did
of us
it.
got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Martha 0, the Final Boys 3. We got her, man. We got her. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I know this isn't a radio show, but thanks anyways. Super happy to always do this with you guys. Just to end things off, what do we got to plug? What things do you guys got going on?
This
yeah.
podcast, Final Boy Status, it is a lot of fun to make. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, look us up, Final Boy Status.
Boom shakalaka. You can follow me on Twitter at Luke Haueter, LukeHaueter. Actually, that's just my username across all social media. So track me down on whatever your preferred platform is. You'll probably find me. Yeah, I mean, I got various projects. I definitely stream, play some games, do some goofs. So you could always check that out. yeah, just check me out. Is really at the end of the day, I want you to think of me in a carnal way. I want you to be checking me out, and I want you to be like, I want it to be a really hot and heavy experience for you. Like this, the shower scenes in this movie. It's so steamy. That's what I want things to be like when you think of me. Steamy.
Definitely make sure you're murdering somebody while you're looking him up on your phone.
Yeah, I want somebody to be stabbed. When people think about me, I want them to be stabbing. Because they're getting their rage out and they won't stab me.
Indeed.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. You're doing
And
so
another
much good
thing.
for the world.
What if I just never stopped talking? And another
Wow.
thing.
And listening's the plug.
And another thing. What is going on with the Star Wars The Clone Wars continuity? Because I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Did you really have another thing, or are you done? Okay. Time for me to
Moving
plug.
on.
I would like to I don't know. I don't have a lot going on. You can catch me in the back alley getting beat up most Saturdays. No, I'm on social media. I don't post anything super fun, but you can find me on Twitch. I have historically streamed, and I have plans to future stream. I'm not currently streaming, but we filmed this in advance, so this is my motivation to get creative. I'm Indie Adam Bones. That's Indie Adam Bones, like Indiana Jones, but my name's Adam Bone. Surprise segment here. We would love to hear what the next movie is. We want to do this so you listeners or you watchers at home can watch along with us and get prepared and be able to give your thoughts to your computer screen that we won't listen to at all. But the next movie is being chosen by Lanson. He did tell us already, so our surprise faces might be faked. Lanson, what's the next movie that I don't already know?
Yes, so the movie that I have never talked about on this podcast before is Antlers, the Wendigo movie that came out last year. So yeah, back in 2021. Excited for that. Big fan of the Wendigo mythology, so yeah, should be fun.
I'm gonna have to listen to some Wendigo podcast stuff for, like, I don't know. I feel like I did a while ago, but I gotta brush up on the mythology again.
Where are we at in like our existences that it's like, oh, I gotta do more research on that thing. Let me pop on a podcast.
Oh yeah,
to get my research done.
Wendigo Weekly.
I wasn't a podcast guy.
What's up, gals and ghouls?
Them recently. We should start that podcast, the Wendigo podcast.
Adam, do you not know what this is? Do you not know that we already do a podcast?
Well, to be totally honest, when we started, I did not listen to podcasts at all, but I was on a podcast, so I didn't know what the world of podcasts were until like 2 months ago. I mean, I listened to some, but now I'm really, because my job makes it. You guys don't care. I've just been listening to a lot of podcasts.
Keep
recently.
telling me things about your life.
I'm happy to talk about it, but maybe let's talk about it off air because I inhale podcasts, so I just need to talk about it.
Cool. Well, thanks, listeners, for this surprise segment. Enjoy your lives. Have a spooky time again. Come
Goodbye
back, please.
forever.
Goodbye forever.
No.